My name is Samantha, 34 years old, and I've been trying my best as a stepmom for 8 years now. My husband Brian and I built what I thought was a loving family for his daughter Lily. She used to adore me when she was little, but now at 16, everything's changed. Yesterday, during an argument about her breaking curfew, she screamed something that shattered me. "You're not my real mom. Stop telling me what to do." After everything I've sacrificed, her words cut like a knife. Where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe if you've ever felt the sting of rejection from someone you've given your heart to. I grew up in a small town called Mapleton in Ohio, where everyone knew everyone else's business. My childhood home was a modest two-story house with a tire swing in the front yard that my father hung for me when I was 6. Those early years were filled with the kind of simple joys that small-town life offers. Sunday picnics at the lake, Friday night high school football games that the whole town attended, and holidays where extended family crowded around tables laden with homemade dishes. Everything changed when I turned 12. I still remember sitting at our kitchen table, the yellow wallpaper suddenly seeming too bright, too cheerful, as my parents announced they were getting a divorce. My mother couldn't look me in the eye when they told me. My father kept clearing his throat, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. Their separation wasn't dramatic or explosive like some of my friends' parents. It was quiet, resigned, as if they had slowly drifted so far apart that one day they looked up and couldn't see each other anymore. My father moved into an apartment across town, and our weekend visits became increasingly awkward until they dwindled to monthly, then occasional meetings. My mother did her best working 2 jobs to keep our house, but emotionally, she checked out. She started dating again within 6 months, a parade of men coming and going, none staying long enough for me to learn their favorite foods or music. I became the adult in many ways, cooking my own meals, doing my own laundry, writing my own excuse notes for school when my mother overslept after late shifts. I learned early that independence wasn't a choice, but a necessity. While other teenagers rebelled against curfews, I had none. While they complained about helicopter parents, I longed for someone to ask about my homework or notice when I skipped dinner. This self-sufficiency served me well when it came time for college. I had saved every dollar from my after-school jobs at the local diner and public library. With decent grades, some small scholarships, and a willingness to work through school, I became the first person in my family to earn a college degree. Teaching wasn't just a career choice for me, it was a calling. Working with elementary school children gave me the stability and sense of purpose I'd craved. In my classroom, everything had order and meaning. My third graders knew I cared, that I noticed when they were sad or excited, that I celebrated their victories and comforted their disappointments. I became the adult I had needed when I was their age. My personal life wasn't as successful. I dated sporadically through my 20s, never finding anyone who understood my need for both independence and connection. My longest relationship lasted just under 2 years with a man named Jack, an architect, with ambitious career plans that didn't include children. When I realized he was serious about never wanting a family, I ended things. The irony that I would later fall in love with a man who already had a child wasn't lost on me. I met Brian at my friend Allison's 4th of July barbecue. He was grilling hamburgers, looking slightly out of place among Allison's mostly single friends. I noticed his wedding ring was missing, but the tan line on his finger suggested it was a recent development. Despite my usual caution, we struck up a conversation that lasted long after the fireworks ended. Brian was refreshingly straightforward. On our second date over coffee at a local bookstore, he mentioned that he had an 8-year-old daughter named Lily. His marriage to Catherine had ended a year ago, and they shared custody, with Lily spending weekdays with him since his ex-wife's nursing job involved night shifts. I won't pretend I didn't hesitate. Dating a man with a child meant accepting that I would never be his first priority, that another woman would always be connected to our lives, that any decisions we made would affect a young girl who hadn't asked for any of this. But there was something about Brian's quiet integrity, the way he spoke about his daughter with such love and respect, that made me want to at least try. Our courtship was careful, deliberate. Brian and I spent time getting to know each other without Lily present for the first 2 months. We discovered shared values about education, family, and building a life with purpose rather than accumulating status symbols. He listened when I talked about my students with the same intensity he brought to discussions about his work as an environmental engineer. For the first time, I felt truly seen by someone. Meeting Lily was both terrifying and wonderful. Brian invited me to join them for an afternoon at the Children's Science Museum. Lily was shy at first, hiding partially behind her father's leg, her dark hair and slightly messy pigtails, her curious eyes studying me warily. But when I asked about her favorite exhibit, the words tumbled out of her about the butterfly garden and how she had learned that their wings had tiny scales like fish. That first day, I was careful not to overstep to let her set the pace. I didn't touch her except for a handshake when we were introduced. I directed most of my questions to both her and Brian. When she dropped her ice cream cone and looked ready to cry, I quickly bought another without making a fuss. The small smile she gave me felt like winning the lottery. As weeks turned into months, our time together increased gradually. I joined them for movie nights, helped Lily with science projects, and learned her preferences: strawberry, not chocolate purple, not pink cats, not dogs. I never tried to be her mother. She already had one. I aimed instead to be another adult who cared consistently and reliably about her well-being. When Brian proposed on Christmas Eve with Lily holding the ring box and bouncing with excitement, I knew I was saying yes to both of them. Our wedding 6 months later was small and intimate. Lily served as our flower girl, wearing a dress she helped choose, scattering rose petals with such concentration that guests chuckled at her seriousness. In my vows, I included promises not just to Brian but to Lily as well, to respect her relationship with her mother, while building our own unique bond. I had no illusions that blending our family would be easy, but I had hope, determination, and love. I believed that would be enough. Sometimes I wonder if that naive optimism set us up for the heartbreak that would come years later. Moving into our new home marked the official beginning of our life as a family. We found a 4-bedroom house in a good school district with a backyard big enough for the swing set Lily had always wanted. Brian and I spent weekends painting and fixing up the place, with Lily enthusiastically helping, her small hands covered in more paint than the walls. We set up Lily's room first, letting her choose the color scheme: lavender walls with butterfly decals, and arranged her toys and books just as she wanted them. I remember standing in the doorway, watching her place her stuffed animals in a precise line along her new window seat, thinking how natural it all felt already. Those early days were filled with adjustments, some small, some significant. Lily was accustomed to her father's cooking and initially turned up her nose at my vegetable lasagna. Brian had never been particularly strict about bedtime routines, while I believed in consistent schedules. We navigated these differences with patience and compromise. Lily's warmth toward me continued to grow. She began asking for me specifically when she needed help with homework, particularly reading and writing subjects, where Brian admitted he sometimes struggled to explain concepts at an 8-year-old level. My background in elementary education gave me an advantage, and our homework sessions often ended with giggles rather than frustration. I was careful about my relationship with Catherine from the beginning. When we saw each other during drop-offs and pickups, I was friendly but professional. I never spoke negatively about her in front of Lily, and I supported their relationship by reminding Lily to call her mother on special days and helping her make birthday and Christmas gifts. Catherine was initially distant but civil, which seemed the best I could hope for. Baking became our thing, Lily and mine. Every Sunday afternoon we would try a new recipe, flour dusting our noses, measuring cups scattered across the countertop. She loved the science of it, the precise measurements and chemical reactions that turned wet ingredients into cookies and cakes. I treasured these moments of connection, the way she would look to me for approval when she cracked an egg perfectly, or how proud she was when Brian declared her chocolate chip cookies the best he'd ever tasted. Beyond our home, I became involved in Lily's school life. I volunteered for field trips, attended every parent-teacher conference alongside Brian, and helped organize the 3rd-grade spring fair. Her teachers appreciated having another engaged parent, especially one who understood education from both sides. Lily would beam with pride when her friends realized I was a teacher too, as if this gave her special status. For Lily's 9th birthday, I organized a surprise science-themed party with simple experiments for each guest to try and a cake decorated like the periodic table. The delight on her face when she walked into the decorated backyard full of her friends was worth every hour of preparation. Catherine attended too, and we managed a polite conversation about Lily's recent interest in astronomy. Sports weren't my strong suit, but when Lily decided she wanted to try soccer, I became the designated practice parent. After work, we would head to the local park, where I would clumsily demonstrate dribbling techniques I'd hurriedly researched online the night before. My athletic ineptitude became a source of shared laughter with Lily, eventually teaching me more than I taught her. Her natural talent for the game was evident early on, and I never missed a match cheering loudly from the sidelines. Art was another bond between us. During quiet evenings, we would sit at the kitchen table with sketchbooks drawing whatever came to mind. Lily had an eye for detail that impressed me, capturing the exact curve of our cat Milo's tail or the specific pattern of leaves on the oak tree in our yard. I framed several of her drawings for my classroom, and her proud smile when I told her about how my students admired them was priceless. Our first family vacation took us to the coast, a week of building sandcastles, collecting seashells, and trying local seafood restaurants. Lily was fascinated by tide pools, spending hours examining tiny crabs and sea anemones. I bought her a journal where she could record her observations and draw the creatures we discovered. At night, the three of us would play board games in our rented cottage, the sound of ocean waves drifting through open windows. We created our own holiday traditions, blending some from my childhood and Brian's, while establishing new ones unique to our family. For Christmas, we made a special ornament each year to commemorate something important that had happened. For Thanksgiving, we each wrote down what we were grateful for and read them aloud during dinner. These rituals gave us a sense of identity as a family unit. Of course, there were tensions too. Lily sometimes tested boundaries, as all children do. She went through a phase of answering everything with, "But why?" which tested my patience on days when I'd already answered similar questions from 23rd graders. There were occasional tantrums when she didn't get her way, and the normal childhood lies about brushing teeth or finishing homework. We navigated these challenges as a team. Brian and I made sure to present a united front on major rules and consequences, discussing any disagreements privately. We both believed in natural consequences rather than punitive measures, so if Lily forgot her lunch, she experienced hunger rather than a scolding, and the lesson typically stuck better. Co-parenting with Catherine had its complications. She had different rules at her house, more lenient about screen time but stricter about bedtime. Lily quickly learned which parent to ask for certain privileges, playing us against each other until we caught on and established better communication. Monthly emails between all three adults helped ensure we were aware of important school events and any behavioral or health concerns. I will never forget the first time Lily called me Mom without prompting. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening, and I was helping her practice spelling words at the kitchen table. She looked up from her list, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and asked, "Mom, can we have hot chocolate when we finish?" The word flowed so naturally from her that she didn't seem to notice what she'd said, but I felt my heart expand in my chest. I managed to nod casually while blinking back tears. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, I told Brian about the moment. He hugged me tightly, understanding its significance without explanation. We were careful not to make too much of it, not wanting Lily to feel uncomfortable or that she was betraying Catherine. She continued to alternate between calling me Samantha and Mom, seemingly based on her mood or the context, and that was perfectly fine with me. By the time Lily turned 11, I truly believed we had created a successful blended family. There were challenges, certainly, but the foundation seemed solid. The bond between us felt real and lasting. I had no way of knowing that adolescence would test that bond in ways I couldn't imagine, that the warm, affectionate child who sought my approval would soon transform into someone I barely recognized. The transition happened so gradually that it was hard to pinpoint exactly when things began to change. Lily entered 6th grade with excitement, suddenly concerned about her clothes and hair in a way she'd never been before. The little girl who once happily wore mismatched socks and cat ear headbands now spent 40 minutes each morning perfecting her appearance, only to declare everything wrong and change again. At first, the changes seemed normal and expected. All the parenting books talked about the emotional roller coaster of middle school, the beginning of puberty, the shifting social dynamics. I reminded myself that I had also been moody and difficult at that age, though, without the complications of a blended family situation. Around this time, Catherine's life underwent significant changes as well. She married her boyfriend Thomas, whom Lily had always liked, and soon after announced they were expecting a baby. Lily was initially excited about becoming a big sister, helping paint the nursery and suggesting names. But as Catherine's pregnancy progressed, Lily became unusually quiet after weekends at her mother's house. When baby James was born, Lily asked to spend more time at Catherine's, wanting to help with the new baby. It seemed like a healthy interest, and both Brian and I supported this change in the visitation schedule temporarily. But as weeks turned into months, Lily's attitude toward our home shifted subtly. She began referring to Catherine's house as her real home, and our place as Dad and Samantha's house, a distinction that hurt more than I wanted to admit. The rules we had established together suddenly became points of contention. Simple requests to clear her dishes or complete homework before screen time were met with eye rolls and sighs. Chores that had once been done without complaint now required multiple reminders, each one increasing her irritation and my frustration. When I brought my concerns to Brian, he initially dismissed them. "She's 12, Sam. It's normal teenager stuff. My sister was way worse at that age." His casual attitude hurt, making me feel as though my observations weren't valid because I hadn't raised a child from birth. But I had been teaching middle schoolers long enough to recognize the difference between typical adolescent behavior and something more targeted. As Brian's environmental firm took on larger projects, his work hours extended, leaving me to handle more of the day-to-day parenting alone. I found myself in the uncomfortable position of being the primary rule enforcer, the one who checked homework, monitored screen time, and ensured chores were completed. Brian became the fun weekend parent, taking Lily to movies and restaurants, while I was associated with routine and restrictions. Parent-teacher conferences in 7th grade raised new concerns. Lily's previously excellent grades were slipping, particularly in subjects she had once loved. Her English teacher mentioned she seemed distracted and had been caught passing notes with a group of girls known for being troublemakers. Her science teacher noted she had stopped participating in class discussions and had turned in several assignments late or incomplete. These academic changes coincided with a shift in her friendship circle. The sweet, studious friends who had been fixtures at our dinner table were replaced by girls I barely knew with heavy makeup and an air of practiced worldliness that seemed inappropriate for 13-year-olds. When I expressed concern about one particular friend who had been suspended for bullying Lily, accused me of being judgmental and old-fashioned. One evening while doing laundry, I found Lily's phone in her jeans pocket. I had never snooped before, respecting her privacy, but a notification flashed on the screen with language that shocked me. Against my better judgment, I opened the message thread and found a group chat filled with inappropriate comments, discussions about ditching school, and cruel remarks about other students. More disturbing were messages about older boys from the high school and plans to meet them at the mall without parental knowledge. When I confronted Lily about these messages, our first major argument erupted. I tried to remain calm, expressing concern rather than anger, but Lily immediately went on the defensive, accusing me of invading her privacy and overreacting. When I explained the potential dangers of meeting older boys unsupervised, she lashed out. "You don't understand anything about my life or my friends," she spat, her face flushed with anger. "You're so controlling. Mom lets me go to the mall whenever I want." The comparison stung, but I held firm on my position that meeting high school boys secretly was dangerous and not allowed. I attempted to establish consequences, restricting her phone use temporarily, which only escalated her fury. "You can't take my phone. You're not my real mom." She said the words like a slap across my face. Though she had implied this sentiment before, this was the first time she had stated it so directly, so weaponized it against me. That night, after she stormed off to her room, Brian and I had a tense discussion about appropriate boundaries and consequences. While he agreed with my concerns, he suggested I might be overreacting to typical teenage rebellion. His dismissal of my perspective created the first real fracture in our otherwise solid relationship, a small crack that would widen as Lily's behavior deteriorated. Lily's transformation during her freshman and sophomore years of high school was dramatic and concerning. The sweet, curious girl who had once shared every thought and feeling with me became increasingly secretive and defensive. Her appearance changed drastically as well, with dark eye makeup, constantly changing hair colors, and clothing that pushed school dress code boundaries. These external changes might have been harmless teenage experimentation, but they came with behavioral shifts that couldn't be ignored. Curfews became constant battles, with Lily regularly returning 30 minutes to an hour late, offering flimsy excuses that fell apart under the mildest questioning. Her room, once reasonably tidy, became a chaotic mess that she refused to allow me to enter. Brian's work situation complicated matters further. His environmental engineering firm had taken on a major international project requiring frequent travel to project sites across the country and occasionally overseas. These business trips left me alone to handle Lily's escalating rebellion, making it easier for her to pit us against each other and harder for us to maintain a united front. Catherine's parenting style created additional confusion. From what Lily told us and the few strained conversations I had with Catherine during handoffs, the rules at her mother's house were dramatically different from ours. Lily had no curfew there, no limits on screen time, and minimal supervision. When I gently tried to discuss consistency between households, Catherine bristled, suggesting I was overstepping my role. The discovery of Lily's secret boyfriend happened accidentally. I was shopping at the mall when I spotted her sitting intimately close to a boy in the food court, his arm draped possessively around her shoulders, their faces close together. What shocked me most wasn't the boy's presence, but his age. He was clearly older, with the beginnings of a beard and keys dangling from his belt loop. When I approached them, Lily's face transformed from laughter to horror. The boy, who reluctantly introduced himself as Jason, appeared to be at least 18 or 19. When I questioned Lily later at home, she admitted he was a senior about to graduate. She had been seeing him for 2 months, deliberately hiding the relationship because she knew we would freak out about the age difference. The conversation that followed was tense and unproductive. Every concern I raised about the legal and emotional implications of a 16 and 19-year-old dating was dismissed as overprotective and controlling. When I insisted on meeting his parents and establishing clear boundaries for their relationship, Lily erupted in anger. "You're ruining my life. Mom already met Jason and thinks he's great. She trusts my judgment, unlike you." That night, after another heated argument about her missed curfew, she had come home nearly 2 hours late with no call or text. The hostility between us reached new heights. Her contempt was no longer subtle or hidden, but openly displayed in eye rolls, slammed doors, and muttered comments just loud enough for me to hear. Brian's response to my increasingly urgent concerns was frustratingly passive. During our late-night phone calls while he was away on business, he would listen to my reports of Lily's behavior with sighs and reassurances that all teenagers go through these phases, and suggestions to pick your battles. His minimization of the situation made me feel isolated and unsupported, as if I was imagining problems where none existed. One particularly concerning incident occurred when I found vaping materials hidden in Lily's desk drawer while looking for a stapler she had borrowed. The discovery of the vape pen and several flavored cartridges confirmed suspicions raised by the sweet artificial scent I'd occasionally noticed when walking past her bedroom. When confronted, Lily didn't even attempt to deny it, instead challenging me with defiant eyes. "Everyone at school does it. It's not a big deal. It's not even real cigarettes." I tried to explain the health risks, the addictive properties of nicotine, the potential legal consequences given her age, but my words seemed to bounce off an invisible shield of teenage invincibility. When I confiscated the vaping materials and grounded her for 2 weeks, her rage was explosive. "You're not my mother. You can't tell me what to put in my body. I hate living here." These confrontations began happening with increasing frequency. Every boundary I tried to establish was met with resistance and accusations that I was trying to control her life. Reasonable requests like completing homework before socializing or helping with household chores became battlegrounds. The comfortable rhythm we had once established as a family was replaced by tension that filled the house like a toxic gas, making it difficult for any of us to breathe easily. Lily's academic performance reflected her emotional turbulence. Her grades plummeted from mostly A's and B's to C's, D's, and even a failing mark in algebra. Teachers' emails described her as disengaged, frequently distracted, and occasionally disrespectful. The bright, eager student who had once loved learning was disappearing before my eyes. My suggestion that Lily might benefit from speaking with a therapist was met with immediate rejection from both Lily and, surprisingly, Brian. He worried about pathologizing normal teenage angst and suggested that giving her space might be more effective than professional intervention. Catherine, when consulted, also dismissed the idea, suggesting that therapy would only give Lily more opportunities to complain about her stepmom. Feeling increasingly desperate, I arranged a meeting with Lily's school counselor, Ms. Ramirez, who shared my concerns about the dramatic shift in Lily's behavior and academic performance. She recommended family counseling rather than individual therapy, for Lily, emphasizing that the entire family dynamic needed addressing. Armed with this professional opinion, Brian finally agreed that we needed additional support, though Lily remained stubbornly opposed. As Lily's 16th birthday approached, she withdrew almost completely from family activities. Sunday dinners, once lively with conversation, became silent affairs, with Lily picking at her food and asking to be excused at the earliest opportunity. Movie nights and game nights were rejected in favor of time spent locked in her bedroom or out with friends we barely knew. Each rejection felt like another small death of the relationship we had built so carefully over the years. The comparison between me and Catherine became a frequent weapon. Mom understands me. Mom trusts me. Mom lets me be myself. Each comparison was delivered with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, cutting exactly where it would cause the most pain. I tried not to take these comments personally, reminding myself that triangulation between parents is a common teenage tactic, but the cumulative effect was devastating to my sense of worth in our family. Brian, caught in loyalty conflicts between his wife and daughter, often retreated from difficult conversations. His attempts to mediate usually ended with superficial solutions that addressed immediate conflicts but ignored deeper issues. Our late-night conversations, once intimate and supportive, became tense discussions that frequently ended in frustrated silence. The most frightening incident came on a Friday night when Lily missed her midnight curfew. By 1 in the morning, with no response to texts or calls, my anxiety escalated to panic. Brian was at an overnight conference 3 states away, leaving me alone to handle the situation. By 2 in the morning, I was calling hospitals and considering contacting police when Lily finally stumbled through the front door, clearly intoxicated, supported by a friend I'd never met who quickly disappeared into the night. The sight of her swaying in the hallway, eyes unfocused, slurring excuses about losing track of time, turned my fear into a cold fury I struggled to contain. After ensuring she wasn't in any medical danger and getting her safely to bed with water and aspirin nearby, I spent the remainder of the night alternating between relief that she was home safe and terror at what might have happened. The next morning, Brian finally acknowledged over the phone that the situation had moved beyond normal teenage rebellion. His voice, usually confident and calm, cracked with emotion as he admitted, "I've been in denial, Sam. I didn't want to see how bad things were getting. I'm coming home today and we're going to figure this out together." His acknowledgement came as both validation and relief, but also raised the question of why it had taken a potentially dangerous situation for him to recognize what I had been saying for months. As I waited for his return, watching Lily sleep off her hangover, I wondered if we had waited too long to address the fractures in our family, if some damages were beyond repair. The day that everything finally shattered began like many others. It was a Wednesday in April, unseasonably warm, with spring flowers bursting into bloom across our front yard. Brian had left for a 3-day business trip the previous morning, promising to call that evening to check in. I woke early, prepared for my day teaching 3rd grade, and knocked on Lily's door to make sure she was up for school. No answer came from behind the closed door. After knocking twice more, I cautiously opened it to find her bed empty, the covers pulled up in a hasty attempt to make it appear occupied. A quick search of the bathroom and kitchen confirmed my suspicion Lily had not come home the previous night. My first reaction was panic, quickly followed by anger, when I checked the location sharing app on my phone and found that Lily had turned off her location services. Multiple calls went straight to voicemail. I notified the school of her absence due to illness to buy time while I tried to figure out where she was and what to do next. Around 10 that morning, while I was in the middle of teaching, my phone lit up with a notification from the school attendance office. Lily had been marked absent from her first 3 classes, but had mysteriously appeared for 4th period. Relief that she was safe mingled with frustration at her deception. I arranged for a colleague to cover my classroom during lunch and drove to the high school. In the attendance office, the secretary confirmed that Lily had signed in late, claiming a doctor's appointment that I knew nothing about. I waited outside her classroom until the period ended, then pulled her aside in the hallway. Her surprise at seeing me quickly transformed into defensiveness. "Why are you here? This is so embarrassing," she hissed, glancing around to see if her friends were watching. "We need to talk about where you were last night and this morning," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was worried sick about you." "I stayed at Rachel's house. Her mom said it was fine. I told Dad." The lie was so transparent it would have been laughable under different circumstances. Brian would have immediately told me if Lily had asked to stay at a friend's house, and he certainly wouldn't have approved it on a school night without discussing it with me first. "Lily, your father is out of town, as you know. He didn't tell me anything about you staying at Rachel's. And even if he had, you know our rule about confirming these plans with both households." Her expression hardened, eyes narrowing. "Whatever. I'm at school now, so what's the problem? Can I go to class?" "The problem is that you lied about where you were, turned off your location services, and didn't answer my calls or texts. We're going home to talk about this." "I'm not going anywhere with you. I have a math test." The hallways were emptying as students headed to their next classes. I took a deep breath, aware that a public confrontation would only make things worse. "Fine, take your test. But I expect you home immediately after school. We have serious things to discuss." She rolled her eyes and walked away without another word, leaving me standing alone in the hallway, feeling simultaneously furious and helpless. I returned to my own school, apologized to my colleague, and somehow made it through the rest of the day on autopilot, my mind constantly returning to the coming confrontation. During my planning period, I made a disturbing discovery while checking social media. One of Lily's friends had posted photos from a party the previous night, and there was Lily in the background, red cup in hand, laughing with her arm around Jason, the older boyfriend we had explicitly forbidden her to see. The timestamp showed the picture had been taken after midnight, and the location tagged was a house known for wild parties where parents were rarely present. By the time I arrived home, my worry had crystallized into a cold determination to address the situation head-on. I rehearsed what I would say, trying to find words that would express the seriousness of her actions without pushing her further away. I reminded myself to focus on safety concerns rather than accusations, to listen as much as I spoke, to remain calm, regardless of her reaction. Hours passed with no sign of Lily. School had ended at 3:15, and by 5:30, she still hadn't appeared or responded to my increasingly urgent texts. I called several of her friends, most of whom claimed not to know where she was, or gave vague responses before quickly hanging up. Finally, at 6:45, I heard the front door open and close. Lily sauntered into the kitchen where I was sitting at the table, her expression a mixture of defiance and boredom. Without greeting me, she headed straight for the refrigerator, pulled out a soda, and turned to leave the room. "Sit down, please. We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I have homework," she replied without turning around. "Lily, I saw the pictures from last night. I know you were at a party with Jason, not at Rachel's house." This stopped her. She turned slowly, her face flushing, but her eyes remained challenging. "So what, I'm 16, not 6. You're not going to tell me who I can hang out with?" "This isn't about controlling you. It's about your safety and honesty. You lied about where you were, spent the night who knows where, missed half a day of school, and were drinking at a party with an older boy we've explicitly asked you not to see. You asked me not to see him. Dad never said I couldn't." This deliberate attempt to drive a wedge between Brian and me ignited a spark of anger I struggled to control. "Your father and I are united on this, Lily, and you know it. Jason is too old for you, and his influence has not been positive. You don't even know him. You met him for like 2 seconds. I know that since you started seeing him, your grades have dropped. You've started lying to us regularly, and you've been engaging in dangerous behavior like drinking and staying out all night without telling anyone where you are." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, you're so dramatic. It was one party." "It wasn't just one party, and you know it. This pattern has been going on for months, and it needs to stop. Until you can demonstrate responsible behavior, you're grounded. No phone except for calls to family, no social media, no going out except for school." The calm mask she had been wearing shattered. "You can't do that. You can't just ruin my entire life because you're jealous that I have friends and a boyfriend. This isn't about jealousy, Lily. It's about keeping you safe and helping you make better choices." "Better choices," she spat. "Like being a control freak who married someone with a kid because she couldn't have her own." The comment was designed to wound, and it succeeded. For a moment, I couldn't speak, the pain of her words stealing my breath. When I found my voice again, it was quieter. "That was unkind and untrue, Lily. I know you're angry, but personal attacks won't solve anything. You want to talk about truth. The truth is, you've been trying to replace my mom since day one, trying to make me into your perfect little daughter, because you couldn't have children of your own. Well, I'm not your daughter, and I never will be." Each word felt like a physical blow, but I forced myself to stay focused on the actual issues. "This isn't about your mother or my relationship with you. It's about your behavior and the dangerous choices you're making." "My behavior. What about your behavior? Snooping through my phone, stalking my social media, showing up at my school like some crazy person." "You're not my real mom. Stop telling me what to do." Her voice had risen to a shout, her face contorted with rage I had never seen before. She wasn't just angry. She was unleashing every ounce of resentment and frustration she had apparently been harboring for years. "You've never loved me. You've just been pretending all these years, playing house with my dad, trying to convince everyone what a great stepmom you are. But I see through you. You're just a sad, pathetic woman who latched onto a ready-made family because no one would start one with you." Each accusation felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. Years of bedtime stories of bandaging scraped knees, of science projects and soccer games and heart-to-heart talks, all dismissed as manipulation and pretense. Every sacrifice, every moment of love I had poured into our relationship, reduced to a selfish act of desperation. "That's enough, Lily," I managed to say, my voice barely audible even to my own ears. "Go to your room. We'll continue this conversation when you've calmed down and can speak respectfully." "I'm not going to my room. I'm going to Mom's house. She at least understands me and doesn't try to control every aspect of my life." Before I could respond, she stormed out of the kitchen, thundered up the stairs, and minutes later came back down with a hastily packed backpack. She didn't look at me as she headed for the door. "Lily, wait. You can't just leave. Your father will be home tomorrow and we can all talk then." She paused at the door, turned to face me one last time, her expression cold and distant. "Tell Dad I'm at Mom's. At least she's my real parent." The door slammed behind her with such force that the framed family photo on the wall, the three of us smiling at Lily's middle school graduation, crashed to the floor, the glass shattering. It seemed a fitting metaphor for what had just happened to our family. Alone in the suddenly silent house, I sank to the floor, back against the wall, and finally allowed the tears to come. Years of patience, love, and effort seemed to have accomplished nothing. Every insecurity I had ever felt about my role as a stepmother crashed over me like a tidal wave, drowning the confidence I had built so carefully over the years. I called Catherine, forcing myself to remain civil as I explained that Lily was heading to her house without permission after a confrontation about her behavior. Catherine's response was coldly dismissive. "Maybe if you weren't so controlling, she wouldn't feel the need to rebel," she said before hanging up, leaving me with no assurance that she would even be home when Lily arrived. When Brian called that evening to check in, I could barely form coherent sentences through my tears. The conversation quickly turned heated as he questioned my handling of the situation. "Did you have to confront her alone? Couldn't this have waited until I got home?" His implication that I had somehow mismanaged the situation felt like a betrayal, the final wound in an already devastating day. "So I should have ignored that she didn't come home last night, pretended I didn't see pictures of her drinking at a party. Would you have preferred I wait until something truly dangerous happened?" "That's not what I meant, Sam. I just think these conversations go better when we're both present." You're never present anymore, Brian. You're always working, always traveling, always leaving me to handle everything while you get to be the fun weekend dad when you're actually here. The conversation deteriorated further, old resentment surfacing on both sides until we were talking at rather than to each other. We ended the call with nothing resolved, both agreeing to continue the discussion when he returned home the following evening. That night, alone in our bed, I seriously questioned whether I could continue in a family where my love and efforts were so thoroughly rejected. The thought of leaving was both terrifying and tempting, an escape from constant conflict, but also an admission of complete failure. As I drifted into fitful sleep, Lily's words played on endless repeat in my mind. You're not my real mom. You've never loved me. I see through you. After that devastating confrontation, I needed space to process my thoughts and emotions. Brian returned home the next day to find me packing a small suitcase, my eyes red from a night of tears and little sleep. His immediate panic that I was leaving permanently subsided somewhat when I explained I was just going to stay with my sister Angela for a few days to clear my head. We can work this out, Sam. Running away won't solve anything, he said, blocking the bedroom doorway. I'm not running away, I replied, zipping the suitcase with finality. I'm taking a step back so I don't say or do something I'll regret. You and Lily clearly need time together without me in the middle, and I need time to think about whether I can continue like this. The drive to Angela's apartment across town felt like an escape from a battlefield. My sister, 5 years older and infinitely wiser in matters of the heart, took one look at my face and opened her arms without questions. It wasn't until later, after a glass of wine and a home-cooked meal, that I poured out the whole story, including every hurtful word Lily had hurled at me. Oh, Sammy. Angela sighed, refilling my wine glass. Teenagers are brutal. They have this uncanny ability to identify your deepest insecurities and use them as weapons. But what if she's right? I whispered. What if I have been trying to replace her mother? What if all these years I've just been fulfilling some selfish need to be a mother? Angela's response was firm. That's nonsense, and you know it. You've gone above and beyond to respect Catherine's place in Lily's life. You've supported their relationship, never badmouthed her mother, and always made it clear that you weren't trying to replace anyone. Lily knows this too, which is exactly why those accusations hurt so much. She deliberately targeted your biggest fears. Over the next few days, Brian called multiple times daily, each conversation a mixture of apologies for his absence and pleas for me to come home. He reported that Lily was still at Catherine's and refusing to discuss the incident, dismissing it as just an argument that I was overreacting to. During one particularly honest late-night call, Brian finally admitted his own failures. I've been avoiding the hard parts of parenting Sam. It was easier to bury myself in work than deal with Lily's behavior. I left you holding the bag while I got to be the good guy. That wasn't fair, and I'm sorry. His acknowledgement helped but didn't erase the deeper questions I was grappling with about my place in our family. Angela, who had gone through a divorce herself, provided perspective I desperately needed. A blended family is like a garden planted in rocky soil, she said one evening as we sat on her balcony watching the sunset. It takes more work, more patience, and more time than one started in fertile ground, but that doesn't mean the flowers that eventually bloom are any less beautiful or real. While staying with Angela, I also decided to see a therapist recommended by a colleague. Dr. Martinez specialized in blended family dynamics, and our first session was revelatory. As I described my history and the current situation, she helped me recognize patterns I hadn't been conscious of. It sounds like you've been trying to create the perfect stable family you never had growing up, she observed gently. That's a natural desire, but it can create impossible expectations for yourself and for Lily. No family is perfect, especially not blended families navigating the already turbulent waters of adolescence. This insight struck a chord. I had been working so hard to create a flawless family unit to be the mother I wished I'd had that I'd placed enormous pressure on our relationships. My need for stability and harmony had made Lily's normal teenage rebellion feel like a personal failure rather than a natural developmental stage. On the fourth day of my self-imposed exile, my phone rang with Catherine's name on the screen, something that had never happened before. My stomach tightened as I answered, expecting more accusations or demands that I stay away from Lily. "Samantha, I think we need to talk," Catherine said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "In person if possible. About Lily." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our home's neutral territory for what I assumed would be an uncomfortable conversation. When I arrived, Catherine was already there, looking tired and worried in a way I'd never seen before. After awkward greetings and ordering coffee, we sat at a corner table far from other patrons. "I owe you an apology," Catherine began, surprising me into silence. "I've been letting Lily play us against each other, and I didn't realize how bad things had gotten." She explained that after arriving at her house the night of our fight, Lily had spun a tale of unfair treatment and controlling behavior. Catherine had initially believed her, but things hadn't added up. When she questioned Lily more closely about the party, and her boyfriend Lily had exploded in similar fashion, revealing the manipulation she'd been engaging in. "She's been telling me you and Brian let her stay out until whenever she wants, that you don't check her homework, that you're fine with her dating Jason," Catherine said, shaking her head. "Meanwhile, she's been telling you that I allow all these things. She's been playing us perfectly." The revelation was both vindicating and heartbreaking. "I've been trying to communicate with you about consistent rules across households for months," I said, unable to keep a hint of accusation from my voice. Catherine nodded, looking genuinely regretful. "I know. I was defensive. It felt like you were judging my parenting, and honestly, I was jealous of your relationship with Lily. For years, she would come home talking about the amazing things you did together, how you understood her better than anyone. It was hard to hear." Her admission stunned me. All this time, I'd been insecure about my role compared to her biological connection, while she had been envying the relationship I'd built with Lily. The irony would have been laughable if it weren't so sad. Catherine continued sharing her own concerns about Lily's behavior. "After you called about her showing up at my house, I checked her room the next morning while she was in the shower. I found vodka in her water bottle and texts on her phone that scared me. Her friend Megan seems to be the ringleader of this group they're hanging out with, and she's bad news. Drinking drugs, older guys. It's all in those texts." We spent nearly 2 hours comparing notes, filling in gaps in our respective understandings of Lily's recent behavior. Catherine confirmed my suspicions about Jason being a negative influence, revealing that he had actually been asked to leave his previous school due to selling marijuana. "I never met him," she admitted. "That was another lie. She told me you and Brian had already approved of him, so I didn't question it." By the end of our conversation, Catherine and I had formed an unexpected alliance. We exchanged phone numbers with a promise to communicate directly, rather than relying on Lily as an intermediary. We agreed on consistent rules between households and a united response to the current situation. As we prepared to leave, Catherine hesitated, then said something that helped heal a wound I didn't realize was still so raw. "You've been a good stepmom to her, Samantha. Better than I probably would have been in your position. She's lucky to have you, even if she can't see that right now." When I returned to Angela's apartment, I found Brian waiting there, having convinced my sister to let him in. The determination on his face told me he wasn't leaving without me. "I've spent the last few days thinking about what kind of husband and father I've been," he said without preamble. "And I don't like what I see. I've been absent when you needed me most. I've undermined your parenting. I've let Lily manipulate me because it was easier than confronting her behavior." He showed me his phone open to a confirmation email for family therapy appointments. "I found someone who specializes in blended families and teens. She can see us starting next week. All of us, including Catherine, if she's willing." His initiative and acknowledgement touched me deeply, but I still had reservations. "Therapy only works if everyone participates honestly, Brian. Lily won't even talk to me right now." "She's coming home tonight," he said firmly. "I told Catherine we need to present a united front, and she agreed. No more letting Lily dictate where she stays when she's angry. We're going to have a family meeting, and while I don't expect miracles, it's a start." That evening, I returned home with both trepidation and hope. Brian had prepared dinner, set the table with our good dishes, and even put flowers in a vase, small gestures that nonetheless signaled his commitment to making things right. When Catherine dropped Lily off, the tension was palpable. Lily refused to look at me, keeping her eyes downcast as she slumped into her usual chair at the dinner table. Brian began by establishing ground rules for the conversation: no interrupting, no personal attacks, no storming out. To my surprise, he addressed his own failings first. "I haven't been the father or husband I should have been," he stated clearly. "I've been absent when important decisions needed to be made. I've left Samantha to handle the hard parts of parenting while I got to be the fun dad when I was around. That changes starting now." He then outlined the new expectations and consequences that Catherine and I had agreed upon. Lily's phone and social media would be restricted. Her location services would remain on at all times. Curfew would be strictly enforced. She would stop seeing Jason immediately. Weekly family therapy sessions were non-negotiable. Throughout his speech, Lily's expression shifted from sullen defiance to shock as she realized that all three parents were now communicating directly and presenting a unified approach. When Brian finished, he turned to me, signaling my turn to speak. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say, trying to balance firmness with compassion. "Lily, I know you're angry with me, and some of that anger may be justified. I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes. But I need you to know that every decision I've made, every rule I've tried to enforce, has come from a place of love and concern for your well-being." I paused, making sure to keep my voice steady, despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "The things you said hurt deeply because I do love you. Not because I'm trying to replace your mother, or because I needed a child to make my life complete, but because over the past 8 years you've become a part of my heart. That doesn't mean you have to see me as your mother. It just means I care about what happens to you, and I always will." Lily remained silent, but I could see tears forming in her eyes, which she quickly tried to blink away. "We're not asking you to be perfect," I continued. "We're asking you to be honest with us, to follow rules designed to keep you safe, and to treat everyone in this family with basic respect, even when you're angry. Can you do that?" For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, almost imperceptibly, Lily nodded. "There's something else you should know," Brian added. "Samantha considered leaving because of how things have been going. She stayed because she believes in this family and all of us. I think we owe it to her and to ourselves to try to make this work." Lily's head snapped up at this real alarm showing in her face for the first time. Whatever issues she had with me, the thought of our family breaking apart seemed to genuinely frighten her. "I don't want anyone to leave," she said, her voice small and vulnerable in a way I hadn't heard in years. It wasn't a dramatic reconciliation. There were no tearful hugs or profound apologies that night. But it was a beginning, a tiny crack in the wall that had been built between us, allowing a sliver of light to shine through. As we cleared the dinner dishes, Lily paused beside me at the sink and said quietly, so only I could hear, "I didn't mean all those things I said. I was just really mad." It wasn't much, but in that moment it felt like enough to build on. The journey toward healing our family didn't follow a straight or easy path. Our first family therapy session with Dr. Wallace was awkward and tense, with Lily answering questions in monosyllables, and Brian frequently checking his work phone despite promising to be fully present. I found myself falling into the familiar role of mediator, trying to smooth over rough moments and fill uncomfortable silences. Dr. Wallace, a warm but no-nonsense woman in her 50s, quickly recognized the pattern. "Samantha, I notice you're working very hard right now to make this session successful," she observed. "Is that something you often do in your family? Try to make things comfortable for everyone else at your own expense?" Her insight startled me into silence. It was true. I had been carrying the emotional weight of our family for so long that it had become automatic. That first session ended with homework assignments for each of us. Brian was to put his phone in a drawer during family time. Lily was to write down her feelings before and after situations that triggered anger, and I was to practice allowing uncomfortable moments to exist without immediately trying to fix them. In my individual session the following week, I finally allowed myself to fully acknowledge the depth of hurt I had experienced. "I've given everything to this family," I told Dr. Wallace, tears flowing freely. I rearranged my career, passed up a promotion to vice principal so I could be more available for Lily, spent countless hours researching how to be a good step-parent. And in one sentence, "You're not my real mom," she erased it all. Dr. Wallace handed me a tissue. "That pain is real and valid, Samantha. But I want you to consider something. Lily didn't erase those years of love and care. She lashed out with the one thing she knew would hurt you most because she was scared and angry. Teenagers have an unerring instinct for finding our most vulnerable spots. She helped me see that beneath my hurt was a deeper fear that I truly didn't belong in this family, that all my efforts to build connection had failed, that I was fundamentally unworthy of Lily's love. These fears connected directly to my childhood experiences of abandonment and instability. You've been trying to create the perfect family to heal your own childhood wounds," Dr. Wallace suggested gently. "But perfection isn't possible or even desirable. Real families are messy. They hurt each other sometimes. They make mistakes. And then they repair those mistakes and move forward." This perspective shift was profound. I had been measuring our family's success against an impossible ideal, setting us all up for failure. Accepting imperfection didn't mean accepting mistreatment, but it did mean approaching conflicts with more compassion and less catastrophizing. Meanwhile, Lily was having her own breakthroughs. In her third individual session, according to Dr. Wallace, who shared only general themes with our permission, Lily began to open up about her feelings of abandonment and instability. Having experienced her parents' divorce at a young age, she carried a deep fear of further loss and abandonment that manifested as pushing people away before they could leave her. "It's common for children of divorce to test the adults in their lives," Dr. Wallace explained during one of our parent sessions. "Unconsciously, they're asking, 'Will you still love me if I'm at my worst? Are you really going to stay no matter what?' Unfortunately, this testing often drives away the very people they most need to remain constant." This insight helped me depersonalize some of Lily's behavior. Her rejection wasn't necessarily about me specifically, but about her fear of attachment and subsequent loss. Understanding this didn't immediately fix our relationship, but it gave me more patience during the difficult days that still occurred. Brian, for his part, began to recognize how his emotional absence had affected both Lily and me. He started declining non-essential business trips and rearranged his schedule to be home for dinner most nights. He took over monitoring Lily's homework and handling school communications areas I had previously managed alone. Most importantly, he stopped undermining my parenting decisions and presented a united front even when Lily tried to play us against each other. Our coordination with Catherine improved dramatically as well. The weekly email updates became detailed phone calls where we discussed not just logistics, but concerns, successes, and strategies. When Lily realized she could no longer manipulate the three of us with conflicting information, her behavior began to shift accordingly. The most encouraging changes happened gradually in small moments rather than dramatic revelations. One evening, about 2 months into therapy, Lily appeared in the doorway of my home office where I was grading papers. "Can I ask you something about this essay?" she asked tentatively, holding out her English assignment. "Dad tried to help, but he doesn't really get what the teacher wants." It was the first time she had sought my help voluntarily in nearly a year. I kept my response casual, not wanting to make too much of this olive branch and scare her off. As we worked together on strengthening her thesis statement, I caught glimpses of the connection we had once shared. Her quick wit, her insightful observations, her pride when she figured something out. School progress reports showed improvement as well. Her grades slowly climbed from concerning D's and F's back to B's and C's with an occasional A in subjects she enjoyed. Teachers' comments noted increased participation and assignment completion. The school counselor reported that Lily was spending less time with the troubling friend group and had rejoined the art club she had abandoned the previous year. There were setbacks, of course. A particularly difficult moment came when Lily broke curfew again, coming home 30 minutes late from a supervised school event. When confronted, she initially fell back into defensive anger, but caught herself mid-argument. "I'm sorry," she said abruptly, surprising both Brian and me. "I lost track of time talking to Sarah after the play. I should have texted. That's not an excuse, just what happened." Her ability to take responsibility without spiraling into a defensive rage marked real progress. We still implemented the agreed-upon consequence no social outings for the following weekend, but the interaction ended without the usual emotional devastation. The most meaningful breakthrough came unexpectedly about 6 months after our initial confrontation. Lily and I were alone in the house as Brian had taken his mother to a doctor's appointment. I was preparing dinner when Lily wandered into the kitchen and began helping without being asked, washing vegetables and setting the table. "Can I talk to you about something?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "Of course," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral despite my internal alarm bells. She was quiet for so long I thought she had changed her mind. Then, staring at the plate she was holding rather than at me, she said, "I've been thinking about why I got so mad at you all the time. Dr. Wallace helped me figure some stuff out." I waited, giving her space to continue at her own pace. "I think I was scared of how much I care about you." She finally said, the words coming out in a rush. "Like if I let myself love you too much, and then you left, it would hurt more than if I just pushed you away first." My heart contracted painfully in my chest, but I remained silent, sensing she wasn't finished. "When Mom had James, it felt like she was replacing me with her new family. And then when you and Dad started talking about maybe having a baby last year, I freaked out. I thought you'd have your own kid and wouldn't need me anymore." This revelation stunned me. Brian and I had briefly discussed having a child together, but had decided the timing wasn't right, partly because of Lily's increasingly challenging behavior. I had no idea she had overheard those conversations or that they had contributed to her acting out. "Lily, look at me," I said gently. "No child could ever replace you in our family. Not James for your mom, and not any child your dad and I might have someday. Love doesn't work that way. It's not divided up like pieces of pie where more people mean smaller slices. It multiplies." She met my eyes briefly, vulnerability clear on her face. "I know that, like, logically, but it doesn't always feel that way." "I understand," I said, meaning it completely. "Feelings don't always follow logic, and it's okay to be scared sometimes. What matters is that we talk about those fears instead of letting them drive our actions." After a moment's hesitation, she asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her. "Were you really thinking about leaving because of me?" The question broke my heart. I was hurt and feeling like I had failed as a parent, I admitted. But I wasn't giving up on our family. I just needed space to think clearly. Families go through hard times, Lily. It doesn't mean we stop being a family. She nodded, absorbing this. Then, in a gesture that felt both small and monumental, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me in a brief but genuine hug before quickly pulling away, embarrassed by the show of emotion. That embrace contained no dramatic words or promises, but it communicated what neither of us could fully express, that beneath the conflict and pain, the connection we had built over years remained intact, battered, but not broken. In the months that followed, our relationship continued to strengthen through both ordinary moments and milestone events. When Lily defended me to a friend who made a dismissive comment about stepmothers Brian overheard and shared it with me later, both of us recognizing the significance of her standing up for our family. For Mother's Day, Catherine invited me to join them for brunch, a gesture of inclusion that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. Lily presented me with a card that acknowledged both her mother and me, writing simply, "Thank you for never giving up on me even when I was at my worst." Those words, written in her slightly messy teenage handwriting, became a treasure I kept in my bedside drawer for difficult days. When the time came for Lily to begin thinking about college applications, she asked if I would help her navigate the process, recognizing my experience as an educator. We spent evenings researching schools and scholarships, our heads bent together over the computer, the easy companionship of earlier years gradually returning. Our family therapy sessions eventually reduced from weekly to bi-weekly, then monthly. Dr. Wallace noted the positive changes in our interactions, the increased respect and communication, the willingness to address issues before they escalated. "You've all done the hard work of rebuilding trust," she told us. "That's something to be proud of." Looking back now, I understand that the painful confrontation that nearly broke our family was actually the beginning of something stronger and more authentic. The idealized perfect family I had tried so hard to create wasn't real or sustainable. What we built instead, through tears and therapy and countless difficult conversations, was something far more valuable, a family that could bend without breaking, that could hurt each other and heal together, that could face hard truths and still choose to remain connected. I've learned that being a step-parent isn't about erasing differences or pretending biology doesn't matter. It's about creating a unique relationship that exists alongside, not in competition with, biological ties. It's about loving without ownership, supporting without controlling, being present without demanding recognition. Most importantly, I've learned that love in blended families isn't automatic or guaranteed. It's built decision by decision, day by day, crisis by crisis. It requires more patience, more forgiveness, and more intentional communication than I ever imagined. But the love that emerges from this effort is powerful precisely because it's chosen, not merely inherited or assumed. Lily will be heading to college next fall, beginning a new chapter in her life and in our family story. Our relationship isn't perfect. We still have disagreements and miscommunications, but the foundation has been strengthened by the very challenges that once threatened to destroy it. When people ask me now if being a stepmother is worth the unique difficulties it presents, I think of that moment in the kitchen, of Lily's brief, awkward hug that spoke volumes about courage and connection. I think of the family we have become, imperfect, sometimes messy, but deeply and genuinely bonded. And I answer without hesitation, yes, 1,000 times, yes. Have you experienced the challenges of blended family relationships? How did you navigate the difficult moments? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that family struggles can lead to deeper connection when approached with patience and understanding. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that the most beautiful relationships are often those that have weathered storms together.